Did the magic button work? Oh, yeah. Okay, we're live. All right, everybody, we are back. This is the Commercial Real Estate Morning News Show, and I've got my friends in the house, and we're going to talk all things commercial real estate. So, welcome to the show. All right, I'll let y'all introduce yourselves. Go ahead, Paul, since you're calling in from across the
I'm
pond.
Paul, calling here from London, CEO of Unified, making buildings smarter.
Yay. Oops, I just dropped something. All right, and Deanie?
Deanie Taylor, CEO at Landmark Healthcare Properties, private medical building developer across the country.
And where are you calling in from, Deanie?
I'm calling in from Philadelphia.
Oh, yes, you're always on the road. It's like, where's where's Deanie? You're always on the road. That's awesome. Well, I'm Amy Polvado. I'm the chair of the U.S. PropTech Council. I always forget to introduce myself. I think everybody just knows who I am. And then I'm calling in from Austin, Texas. I am back. Last week, we didn't have our show. I know everybody was heartbroken. We didn't have our show last week. And so nobody knows what to do until they come to our show. I'm just saying out loud. No, I'm just kidding. I was in Denmark and Sweden last week as part of my master's program with the University of Texas, Hook 'em Horns. And it was really interesting. I know where Paul gets his sustainability thing from. No, I'm just kidding. It was all they talked about was sustainability, this, sustainability, that. The hotels, oh my gosh, like they would cut. You had I never did the key card thing where you walk into a hotel and you have to put the key card in for the electricity to go on. Like this is how they do the hotels there to save energy.
Yeah.
So as soon as you pull the key card out, none of the lights work, nothing works. Well, I thought that was for like the whole unit. I didn't realize they left one of them on. Like there was the outlet. So I was like, I can't charge my phone while I'm gone. I can't do anything. Like this is like dumb. And then I kind of figured it out. But yeah, so it was really.
You've got to go down to the desk and tell them you lost the key and get another one, and that's the one you
Always
leave in
get-
when you.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, that's why you get two. Come on, Amy, you got to learn to travel.
Amy, you can put anything in there. You can put a playing card in there over.
Oh, okay. All right. Y'all, see, where were you? I should have called y'all last week. I was like having all sorts of problems.
We've done that forever over there. That's just the way you do it.
All right. Well, I was definitely a rookie traveling to Europe. Totally a rookie. Okay. Well,
Your age, Amy, seriously. We should be teaching you these tricks. I mean, what are you, 24, 25 now?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was actually my first time to Europe. I had never been. So I will know next time.
Get an extra key.
Get an extra key. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm such a dumb American and I lost the thing. Whatever. Oh, the other funny story was I'm going to the airport and I start taking my shoes off.
Oh, Lord.
And they were like, do you want some covers for your feet? And I was like, I am such a dumb American.
Yeah, Paul. She's the people we talk about when we're going through line in the airport. That's exactly who she is.
Exactly. Oh yeah, I learned all.
I do laugh. I took a photograph where it said it, and I was in America. I think it was in Dallas, I don't know, California, and it said you must remove all the bullets from your gun before you put it in your case. I'm like, what? You can travel with a gun? Jesus.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never seen that, but okay. All right. Well, all right. That's interesting.
You guys.
Usually you can't travel with a gun. Yeah.
Anyway. We'll teach you all the tricks. But were you impressed? Were you impressed with Denmark and Sweden in terms of where they're going, sustainability, or what did you
so it was part of my master's program, and so it was very tech related, and the Nordics have a lot of prop tech. So we did visit several of those places, and one of them was this really cool guy, and I'm going to butcher his last name, so I'm not going to even say it. It's Michael or Mikhail something, and he runs Innovate Sweden, and he has a couple of co-working spaces there, and he had the park, and they also had like SUP 46, and and he's been doing it for about 20 years. So a lot of the things, and I didn't realize Sweden had, but like Spotify started in Sweden, and a lot of different places have started in Stockholm, Sweden. The cool thing about it was, and this was kind of an interesting thing to learn, was when you develop anything in Europe or even in Sweden, you have, or UK, sometimes you can get away with the UK, but you have to think globally, right? In the US, we can get away with just, doing something in the US or even in Texas, right? Like we're just going to start locally and just develop in small markets. In Europe, you can't think that way. So whatever you build or whatever you do has to be a global reach, right? The markets are too small. And so I was just like fascinated by that. And I was like, man, in the US, we need to think that way too. I mean, we don't have to necessarily because we're just such a huge market, but we would proliferate. I mean, if we thought that way and took at, okay, whatever it is we're developing, how can it be used, say in Sweden or say in UK or whatever it might be, it would be really super interesting. But yeah, it was definitely, and that's why they have like so many unicorns, because they think that way, right? They think, okay, how can we build something that can be used every day? Like we met the CEO and founder of this really cool tech company called Humani. So it's human with an I at the end, and apparently it's Latin for built for humans or something. And so it was all about how you can prepare for an interaction with an employee or somebody, an interaction with one of your team members, using a profile that's built out. So for your whole team, they can all build out a profile, and then your preferences on communication, what their preferences are in communication, and it uses AI to say, okay, if you're going to talk to this person, you need to talk to them this way. This is how you're going to get through to them, right? And so I was like, well, that's super interesting. And I can see for very large teams or new environments that could be really super useful. Or if you're going across, if you have a large organization, you have to go talk to somebody you don't talk to on a regular basis, so you don't know them really well. That would probably be useful. So it was interesting. Yeah. It was interesting all just around on how people prefer to be communicated to. It was really like, if you're going to talk about this, you need to approach it this way. So it's really using AI that way. And bring suggestions. Yeah. So they're a new startup. They're in Denmark. And then we met some others. But yeah, that was very prevalent, was they had to think globally. They had to think, and they were like, when they were developing their models, they were like, oh, we could do this, but then people would only interact with it like once a quarter. So that's not good enough. We need something where they're going to interact with it, or they have to interact with it every day. What do we do? What do we build? What's the use case? So it was really kind of, it was pretty interesting. I will say I didn't enjoy Denmark as much as I thought I was going to, because I was just so cold. I was just like, I was miserable. I came from Texas and it was like 80 degrees when I left. And I got there and I'm like, F this. Like, it's cold. It's wet. I'm by the water. It's like going right through me. And I'm like, no, I can't do it, y'all. And I had like 4 layers on. So but you acclimate, you used to. So by the time we got to Sweden, it was great. And I was like walking around and I was fine. It was no big deal. So I didn't do Denmark justice, because every time I talk to people in Sweden, like, oh, we love Copenhagen. Copenhagen's so cool. And I was like, oh, that's horrible. I hate it. I was like, but I think it was just because it was so cold.
But the good people of the Nordics, do you find there's a real common sense about them? They're very stable. It's a very stable type of very safe country.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, but the really bikers in Denmark would give you the side eye if you got in their way. Like, they were really mean. Like, it's like they turned into New Yorkers. Like, if you got in the bike lane, like, that was really kind of an like, we got off when we first got there, and like one of my like Zach was like getting out of the car, and he's like, the guy driver's like, get out of the bike lane, and the guy was like going by them, and yeah, I gave him a little stare down, like, you Americans, get out of the bike lane. But I mean, other than that, they're very nice people for sure. Oh, I learned about the Swedish, personal space thing, and I didn't realize that because I was talking with somebody. We're Americans, we like almost Italian, and we're like on top of one another, we're like talking fairly close. And in Sweden, he was like kept going like this, and I'm like, am I offending you? Do I have bad breath? Like, I was like, what's going on? He goes, no, in Sweden, we're very much the 6 feet. We don't wear, COVID was no big deal because we always stay like 4 to 6 feet apart anyway. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, culture.
Sure wasn't your garlic bread from the night before?
Yeah, I don't think so. I didn't have any garlic. So yeah. I was like, yeah.
They're great country. Some really smart people, great tech comes out of there. And it's usually very well thought out. I find there's even design, I have to say, you can almost tell a Danish designer. They have a certain, language and how they design things are quite brilliant. They're quite brilliant at doing simplicity very, very beautifully.
Yeah.
The architect. I don't know if you've seen many of the buildings. Or some of the architecture is quite fantastic.
Oh yeah, there was the building that they built. The last one we went to was this technology center. I was totally jealous. It was like this big co-working space for a bunch of tech startups, all different kinds. They had life sciences. They had all different kinds of tech startups in there. And it was totally, they were like, yeah. So when they launched it, I guess it was earlier in the year, they had the royal family from Denmark and the royal family from Sweden there when they opened it, because it was a Danish architect that designed the building. It was beautiful. It's just absolutely the way they laid it out. And yes, simple, but super functional, super inclusive, super just the way it was really well thought out. And you got to give your nod to somebody who like can design a building and it's super well thought out, like how they design common areas and how they design different things in the building, which is super cool. But yeah, so yeah, and I totally forgot about that they have royals there. I am such an American. I'm sorry. It was like, oh, you have royal families in Denmark and Sweden? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. There's that.
No, but they do simplicity so beautifully.
Yeah.
I've seen some buildings over there, and it's almost as nothing there, but the nothing is done with such thought and perfection. When I was over in Dubai at their expo in 2020, each country had a space, and I remember it was the Danish or the Swedish expo, and I've never seen such beautiful wood. It was nothing really ever there, but it was just executed with brilliance. Whereas a lot of the rest of them were very over the top in terms of how they pushed the look and feel of each building, but the Danish were just nailed beautifully simplicity.
Yeah. Awesome. Sorry, my thing wasn't plugged in. Yeah.
And actually, what you just said earlier on about this whole globalization piece is quite important. On Sunday, the UK became a member of the CPTPP, which is a bit of a mouthful, which is the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement of Trans-Pacific Partnership. So there's a Pacific, like you'd have the Eurozone, etc. The UK somehow managed to become a member of the Pacific Zone, which I thought was quite fantastic. And that's opening up markets, lowering the tariffs and all the rest. And that's why probably a big difference between where I am even is I'm always thinking about whatever we're building in technology, how's it going to work in Hong Kong? How's it going to work in Kuwait?
Right. So
that is something I think I met one of the ambassadors at Dubai Airport one time. I think it was actually from Sweden, believe it or not. And he was saying that how the UK just nails how they export globally. And we don't tend to see that a lot. We don't tend to see as many, considering America is such a huge country and so far ahead in technology. On trade missions, there are not the same sort of trade missions for American companies to all these overseas markets as we tend to have here, definitely in the UK. But it's a fairly prevalent thing across Europe to try and bring technology companies into markets like Vietnam or wherever it might be, quite frequently.
Yeah. I mean, as far as like cross-border commercialization, yes, for sure, right? Because you have to do languages and you have to do all sorts of different cultural things, and you have to you're starting to get really. I mean, in the U.S., we're not that good at it. I mean, eventually we get there, right? When we kind of figure it out, but
you get there when you're corporates, then you start doing the whereas we would do it at the very, very early stage. Sorry, like even startup stage would be going into overseas markets, and at least getting a pulse on how they look and are the ideal fits for us.
Yeah, for sure. So I did win. So the obviously going across the pond, recognizing that there's different healthcare systems. I'm so glad Deanie's here, because they were talking a little bit about, and I wanted to talk about this a little bit as around the AI in the healthcare space. And so I'm glad you two are on, because one of the big things that we did visit one of the life sciences and a couple of other healthcare kind of real estate folks over there. And it was more along, and I don't know if this is kidding here, Deanie, but it was along how are we going to kind of integrate occupational technologies, if we can, with the building technologies, and kind of using AI in a good way. Some of it's around people movement, some of it's around occupancy sensors, some of it's around space planning, adjustable space planning, depending on, whatever it might be, or how can we build a medical office or a hospital and it can be scalable, quicker depending on what, pandemic or something arises, or do we have the ability to do pop-up clinics? I mean, it was a really kind of interesting thought process around all of that. And I don't know if we're doing, what's the latest here in the US?
Well, one of the things, and I saw it out there at the conference in New York, is in the US, we're big about confidentiality on healthcare.
Yeah.
So gathering data or using cameras that pick up on things that then lead to AI decisions and stuff is a real problem
Yeah.
because of the confidentiality. But and I think it's Sony has finally developed some cameras that do not actually show the images to who's looking at them, and they now can detect falls or also actually anticipate falls from the movement of people in medical buildings, so that you can try to prevent them and if they happen, you don't identify from the data source that person as a person falling. You just identify that a human fell, and then and an AI can use that to say there is a problem in your building in that particular area that needs to be corrected. And that's, I don't know in Europe if they have all the confidentiality issues that we do, but it's extreme about in healthcare not identifying, obviously because of HIPAA and all, anything about a patient when they're in a outpatient medical building or a hospital. So it makes it difficult for AI to collect data if you can't review or see what and get a history. But these cameras now work that way, and I saw those in New York at the
CRE
at the CRE. Yeah, it was really neat. It was really neat. But the other thing is, and it's the same. This has been around for retail. We're finally learning how to use cell telephone data on movement of people and numbers of people in a medical space to anticipate when there is a problem volume wise and space wise in a building, filling up the occupancy of an area. And so there's some of that going on, but healthcare has always been slow to adjust. It's just we are the last to accept change.
Yeah, everybody says that though about themselves. I think that's hilarious. But
well,
construction, we say that about construction. Everybody kind of says that about except for I guess that's not true. I mean, but yeah, no, I got you. There was a in Sweden. There was this really interesting new startup that was around Legionella and water quality, which I thought was really super interesting. So. And, we talked about this a couple of times on the PropTech Council about, okay, how can we use, obviously there's air quality sensors and getting those, and I'm sure in the hospitals or medical, you'll have some of that where you're monitoring air quality. And then the water quality, what was cool about them was all they were doing, it was like super simple. It was like you like take a COVID test at home or whatever, you take whatever it might be, right? So they have those water quality tests. So like as a person, it doesn't even have to be the building itself or the manager itself. The person or the tenant, whoever's in there, can stick the stick in the water, see if there's a problem. But sometimes, I don't know, y'all don't know this, but sometimes when you have a pregnancy test, you can't tell what the F it's saying because it's the two lines. You're like, am I pregnant or not? Right? Like, I don't know. And then you have to go to the doctor because it's like faint. And you're like, I might be pregnant. I don't know. Those are the same tests, and everybody can't read them all the time. So what they do is they use your phone over the test, and it tells you. And not only does it tell you, it tells you the exact percentages of whatever is in that water. And so I was like, that's pretty sick. That's kind of awesome. And so, so that was one of the startups we met over there, but it was all around water quality and managing the water, right? Because I know when we had our conversations on Legionella, it was that most incidents of people getting sick from buildings or being in the built environment is from water. It's not from air. Or at least they can't trace it to the air. But yeah, it was interesting. It was
How about
interesting.
that?
Go
know,
back on the
so-
health.
Yeah,
Go-
Yeah, keep
Let's
going.
go back on the healthcare side of things and AI. You know, the NHS is well known for being a bottomless pit of money. So no matter how much money the government pour into the NHS, it's like a sponge. It'll just soak it up anywhere.
I love how you think about us Americans, Paul. It's so warm. It's so
Ah.
happy.
How what I say to insult you this time? Anyway.
Keep going, Paul. Keep going.
So anyway, with the NHS here, no matter how much money they put in, it just gets used up and it's gone. And you know, I think it's getting to a stage where the efficiencies aren't there. The certain things are going quite well. But what the new, thankfully, what they're now doing is there's actually more data on UK patients than any other country in the world because it's got one system. And they're now looking at really crunching those numbers, you know, using AI and working out how on long term do we start thinking about what we have to do, when we got to do it, and education. I've been pushing for quite a long time. I got a lot of friends in the medical field, and you see patterns of, especially when women have their first baby, for example, they're at the doctors all the time. And my whole piece has been, why don't we do a weekend away for when women are pregnant, where they go and they're taught about this is what happens to the baby. These are all the things you need to be worried about. These things you have to go and see a doctor. These things you have to bring the baby straight to the hospital. These things you solve for yourself, or you go to a chemist and get sorted out. But it's educating people on what is going on with them is really important, because we cannot. I mean, the issue is we literally are in a horrendous long-term situation here, because people, as I said before, are taking too long to die, not living longer. And we have got a growing aging population in most countries. I mean, you know, Africa, India, whatever, there's some countries where it's got a young population, but most of our sort of Western countries, Japan, US, we've got aging populations. And the economics don't work any longer in terms of pensions and long-term healthcare. And I really think this is where I hope this government now come in and just, you know, while they have a vast majority, go in there and really shake up the sector and try and look at that data that we're going to have, rich data for decades and decades now, and work out how they go forward and what they start trying to sort of, in the earliest stages of people who may have a high propensity to prostate cancer or breast cancer or wherever it might be, they filter them out and find them very early on and start getting them in for testing more than the general population, to try and make sure you don't get to points where you get, you know, detected at 3 or 4 of cancer. Get them there early and try and get it sorted out. Now, what I did see many years ago with an incredible AI team was in Shenzhen with a company called Ping An. And they have, you know, literally tens of millions of people on their health insurance. And they were getting to a stage where they were looking at every single piece of data from your blood type, you name it, to try and foresee, based on your diet, your blood type, whatever it might be, is there a reason why certain people get certain types of cancers? Now, what they were looking at was building hospitals, with specialty hospitals in key areas where the data showed there was enough of a population within a radius to justify having a specialist cancer hospital or a stroke hospital or heart attack hospital in these areas with just those focus sort of skills in that place. So AI, I think, in healthcare is really the way forward if we're going to be able to afford to actually keep going at the rate people need protection.
Yeah, I mean, Deanie can talk about this, but in my brain, I know. So you were saying NHS, and I totally thought you were digging at the Americans. That's why I said what I said. But you're talking about in Britain, right? The NHS.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, all right. So us Americans, we are so skeptical of anybody with our information that we're all going to do, oh, hell no. We don't want you to know. I mean, because remember back in the day with Obamacare, and everybody's like, there is going to be these death panels. And like, I mean, we're so afraid of the government knowing our information that I think, well, all of that makes sense. And it's all very altruistic and it's awesome. And I think it would be great. It's going to be really, we're going to fight that in America. We're going to be like, I don't want you to know what I have, because then I'm going to get charged more, because we don't have universal health care. So then our systems be like, oh, they're going to know everything I have. And so my insurance costs are going to immediately triple because they know that I'm susceptible to cancer or whatever it might be. And so that's what we fight over here. And am I wrong, Deanie?
No, not at all.
Yeah. There's lots of other European countries where, you know, Germany especially, we find that it's very, very skeptical about sharing data. Very. And it's just it's culturally. And I actually think because the government funds the NHS and because that is a system, and that data is so rich that really they need to force through and get around. I mean, they can get around these, a lot of the anonymization, but really the data is so rich. This is like a golden moment for healthcare here. And I think what they build here, and what I'm trying to push them to do, is say, look, if you nail this here, you can then take these learnings and go, and it becomes a service we then export around the world. But it's important. There's important data here.
The other part of that is on the provider side. We're probably a generation at least away from physicians accepting AI readily in the treatment, diagnosis, and prevention of all kinds of health problems. The physicians coming out of school now, I'm sure, are much more receptive, but the vast majority of physicians still are 50 plus, and it's going to take that generation shift to really accept AI. We've seen it over and over as technology has improved to treat patients. It takes a while for physicians to accept it. They just but once it's accepted, I think it'll take off unbelievably fast.
So I mean, I guess it has good use cases around like triage, right? When you get somebody coming into the ER, and then they can, have people while they're on the way fill out what are your symptoms, or even telemedicine from, like, I don't know if telemedicine is the thing, but of just kind of, WebMD. Everybody thought WebMD was going to end the patient doctor. You're like, I don't need to go to the doctor. I have WebMD, and that WebMD said everything is like you could die. Like, it was like, I don't know if y'all know, Paul, about WebMD, but it was like online internet. Like this. It was always like, it could be everything. And oh, by the way, you're going to lose a limb or you're going to die. Like they were covering everything. And so it was sort of helpful, but everybody thought that I think what it did was it drove everybody to doctors because they all thought they were going to die. It was like, it could be this, or could this be something simple? Oh, you just have gas, or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We've got a big issue now with obesity over here. It's becoming more and more prevalent. I mean, I know America's had issue with obesity for a long time, but that's obesity is probably the big number one killer or cost of running a health system. I mean, it is just bad. And I think they brought in things like sugar taxes over here, and it needs to go further all the time. I think that, we have to sort of educate people that you can't just eat KFC or McDonald's or whatever it might be every day and expect to have a great outcome. It just doesn't work like that. And I think the sugary taxes and all the rest are probably really good things to sort of try and stop people from going on that route. And a lot more needs to be done, but we got to educate people far more. But also, I think the AI side is really the golden bullet here for.
Well, a classic example that's always used in healthcare is how where you are, Paul, hospice has been so well accepted. It's really made a difference in the cost of end of life care. In the US, we look the other way. We've got every excuse why England won't work in the US at end of life, because that's where all our money is spent, and we continue to do it. It is almost a society and cultural issue for us to do what is accepted and is very patient and family oriented in England. We will not do that in the US. We won't accept it. And it's very few physicians that will accept the type of hospice care readily that is well accepted there and is very successful. I mean, it makes a difference in families. We struggle with that here.
What are you referring to, Dean?
Okay.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about end of life. I mean, if you look at a patient that is 80, 85, even 90, the extremes we go to, you would not do that in England. You would not. Because it's accepted and it's been proven, and they got all kinds of data of what little benefit you get for the patient and the families to go through to try to treat something that is just not going to make a difference. We will go to extremes, and it's not just the money, it's the impact on the patient and the family and what they go through. When you could make that end of life much more
comfortable.
comfortable. That's the word,
Yeah.
comfortable. And we have a hard time with that.
We have a hard
Yeah.
time letting go of people, for sure. That we
Yeah.
want to try everything under the sun in order to save them.
Right. Right.
You know, I mean, to say
But
my dad,
there's a point where you got to say, and the data proves it,
yeah,
that you are not doing a benefit. And oh, by the way, you're just adding millions to the healthcare system in dollars.
yeah.
So anyway, we could talk all day.
Yeah, I
We
agree.
debated
My own-
we've debated it in school, we've debated it in the organizations everywhere. And it's
Well, actually,
hard in
one of
the
the
US.
Yeah, one of the important things that happened here the last week or so was we had a bill that went through the Parliament. Now it has to go ratified through the House of Lords and back to the Parliament again, so it's not a done deal. But end of life, they brought in end of life legislation where you can decide to actually end your own life when certain criteria have been met. You've got less than 6 months to live. 2 doctors have said he's completely understands the whole consequences, etc. So that was a big step, a really big, in fact, a big moral step in the country to agree to end of life treatments, so that you're given drug to pass away when you decide to. And you know,
Wow.
very recently, I had a really dear friend of mine, really dear friend of mine, old guy who we got on like a house on fire with. And he died of cancer a few months back, and I was pretty much looking after him to the last day actually. And I found the last couple of days were very hard. Really, he knew, I knew, we all knew that he just had to be given some heavy medicine to drift off, because he was in a lot of pain the last 3 days, and that was cruel. And I think that you know, it's a moral issue, because really, when you bring in end of life care, where you can decide you want to go early, there are moral reasons why you have to be careful about that particular one. But certainly, I've seen now 2 cases firsthand. My father in his last few days, and this friend of mine who died a few months back, where really 3 to 4 days before they died, they were really just, you know, it was quite cruel. And I think too many people are seeing that now firsthand. They're going, actually, we morally wouldn't let a dog or a cat or anything else die like that. And I think it's a big shift, and it's happening more and more. I think I think in Texas, you're allowed to do it in Texas, I think, as well. Is that right?
What?
You're allowed to actually take your own life at the end through a lethal injection sort of situation.
Not that I
It's
know
quite
of.
rare. There's definitely one state in the States that you're allowed to do it.
They tried that in Oregon for a while, but I don't know if Oregon had that law, but I don't know if it's still in place.
It's still in
I
place.
remember-
Actually, it is Oregon. Yeah, it's still in place. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I remember Dr. Kevorkian and all the stuff about him in the U.S. and he was he was basically Dr. Death. And when people wanted to, he would just, you know, and that was really controversial here in the U.S. Like everybody's like, he's a murderer, and it's a cultural thing for sure. My dad, talking about Texas, my dad's like, if I ever get to like this and this and this, and I can't, you know, do whatever, he goes, just take me out the backyard and shoot me. So that's what my dad says. He's 81. He's like, just take me out the backyard and shoot me. My sister, who works in medical field, she goes, Dad, I can't shoot you, but I could definitely poison you. You know, I could do that and let you drift off to sleep. Yeah, poison all that. Because I got, you know, I'm in hospitals all day long. I can take care of that. But I mean, it's a joke in our family. But my dad's 81, and it's just like, you know, you think about that with your folks, and I can't, you know. Yeah. My mom passed suddenly, you know, and I really thought she was going to be around to be a pain in my ass for another 20 years, but she wasn't, and she just kind of passed suddenly. So there's, you know, there's grief with that, and there's also blessings with that. She was in a lot of pain, so I get that, but I can't, you know, it's an interesting concept. I mean, and as we have it more, I guess it's going to be super prevalent or super, you know, topical, because we're going to have more. We are aging. Everybody's aging. Everybody's living longer, as we talked about before, and
except you, Amy. You always look glamorous.
Oh, I do. I know. But I'm still.
But yeah, no, it is a big issue, and it's a big issue globally. I mean, if you look at the Far East, especially like countries like Japan, where childbirth rates are so low now, it's a really big problem. And I see the same happening in China, where, you know, we've got a big older population, and very few people reproducing anymore. And we see it in certain countries where it's more prevalent. But yeah, it's in the next 10
Yeah.
years, 20 years, it's going to be a massive problem in a lot of countries.
Yeah, I know. It's definitely, I know Elon wants to repopulate the earth, but with his 12 children or whatever it is, like, yeah. But, you know, I guess I have to make fun of him.
Right, moving on. Yeah.
Moving on.
So AI and buildings. Let's get
AI
back
and
on the subject matter. Yeah.
Squirrel.
Before we start.
But let's talk about, like, okay, so on the healthcare side, say we have everybody freaks out where every time it becomes winter because we think there's going to be another COVID, right? Or whatever it might be. So is there, how can AI help the healthcare community if there's some sort of freaky, weird pandemic again? What would they look to AI to be used for? Is it from a scalability, like to, you know, come up, come down? Are the pop-up clinics really a thing, Deanie? Can we do those things? Or how would they handle it? If we had another pandemic, what would we do?
Well, first of all, and this has been done in a few markets, you have to separate what is acute and from a need of healthcare versus non-acute. And it's not pop-ups, it's more of a drive up.
Oh,
And I have seen the conversion because bank branches are gone. You know, bank branches drive up are on the decline. I have seen in markets where they have transitioned those into drive up healthcare facilities where you can get as much as possible from driving up and being cared for.
that's
And that came about through COVID because that's how they got the vaccines.
yeah.
They drove up and it was fast and it kept people separated, all of that. They now talk about how that could be used for routine examinations of things that works. Now you can't do a drive up and fix a broken bone. That's not going to happen.
No.
But it separates patients that are high risk that just need a drive up concept that would work. And
Yeah.
so that's one thing. Now, AI didn't help on that. That's real estate using bank branches. You know, it's another use and for bank branches. More on the AI side has been what technology is being developed in the building to separate and protect patients if there is an epidemic of some sort. We now pretty much in all buildings talk about how you would separate if you had to patients and providers in the event of an epidemic. We've learned from the mistakes, so to speak, of COVID, and I think AI is helping develop various systems and devices to help us do that.
I would imagine, remember that, like that, I don't know what it was, that it's so usually on Mission Impossible, Terminator, like they're walking through and they can see people.
Yeah.
Can you imagine somebody walking through this thing and they go, oh, you have COVID, go over here. Or you
Right.
have this, go over there.
But we
Or-
built that. We built a whole system where we could
Yeah.
detect who you were, even with a mask on, and did you have COVID? I built that in like 3 months during 2020. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think globally, a lot of countries did a lot of things great. A lot of countries did a lot of things very, very, very badly. And I think there'll be more consensus globally about how we handle things going forward. During COVID, I was in India and I was in China. I was one of the few people traveling. Actually, the Chinese allowed me to fly into China when even Chinese people are not allowed into China. And I saw culturally there a complete polar opposite to the UK and UK and Ireland, where I ended up being in the November, October, and December. I was over there in October, and literally the quarantine measures would just be extraordinary. And everybody knew it was for the greater good. And again, this is where culturally things were different. Over here, nobody really gave a damn because there was old people dying, which I think is quite morally disgusting. But they're like, yeah, but there's only old people dying. Whereas over in China, they're like, yeah, but we have to do this because old people are dying, because they culturally respected older people than we did. But it was just culturally, nobody was walking around going, oh, I'm exempt. There was nobody saying they were exempt. Whereas here, Yeah, this is fact. This is fact. There were people going to doctors' surgeries, getting through the receptionist to get a face-to-face meeting with a doctor during COVID because they said it was affecting their makeup.
It was affecting their makeup.
Yeah, having to wear masks. So could they have an exclusion? We had these exclusion lanyards.
Because the mask was affecting their makeup and they didn't want to wear a mask. Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember seeing the pictures of the nurses afterwards, and they had bruises all along their face because they had to pull it so tight. They were so scared of, like, getting whatever it might be. But yeah, we didn't know. I mean, it was crazy town. So, but
yeah, there's a lot of learnings.
Yeah, for sure. I think going back to the converting. I always like a cool adaptive reuse stories. Converting bank branches into drive-up stuff. How much of healthcare could somebody get up through a drive-up scenario? Like, I mean, I can imagine like testing. Like I used to get, not anymore, but UTI and kidney infections, and you're just doing like all they're doing is you're going in there and you're giving them a urine sample. You could do the urine sample at home and bring it up and
right.
Right. So anything with blood or urine or
right,
whatever it might be, however they're testing you, like a nose thing, like they're testing you for whatever, you could do all that. Is that a good portion of the care? Is that like a quarter of the care? Is it?
I never saw any numbers percentage wise. I just saw them happening in various markets. And like I say, it was driven by COVID, but they didn't shut them down afterwards. They now continue to use them, and they've expanded them to some and put procedure rooms in them that can be used. But they still, I mean, if you think about it, there are a lot of things you can, as you said, drive up and have a test done that you don't have to get out and be exposed to something else. And that is what people worry about. As soon as there is publicly an epidemic, and Paul's right, we didn't take it serious. I mean, I lived in Florida. We didn't, COVID didn't come to Florida. It didn't. I mean, we didn't have it. We all were on everybody kind of did what we always did. And it was crazy. It's just crazy to think that way.
Florida and Texas the same way. Our governor basically said, COVID schmovid. It's like Voldemort. Don't you dare say the word, and don't you dare force people to wear masks, and don't you dare. I mean, he made decrees. The business owners couldn't force people to wear masks inside their businesses.
Well, we made national news with a grocery store just that way. He said, matter of fact, he had signs saying, "Don't wear a mask when you come in to shop."
It was the fight between who could keep up with who between DeSantis and Hillary. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy.
And but I think it'll be different the next time.
Yeah.
The kind of the review after the fact is sad how it was done, and I think the next time, and there will be another one. There will be another one. It will happen again.
Yeah,
we live too tightly packed now. There's no doubt.
I mean, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's not something like that that's spread, by people sneezing or whatever. I mean, but it just, I don't know what it's spread by, but but yeah, I mean, it's sad. It's sad, but we've had, and do you think there'll be, because we had I guess the latest. Well, I mean, are they accelerating between time periods between pandemics? Because the last big one we had was when? I don't know, y'all. I don't know.
It was a long time ago, but it will be much shorter this time.
You're
not going to wait 50. You're not going to wait 50 years. I can tell you that.
Oh, all right. Okay. No. So it
was in the late 60s, early 70s with Spanish flu, I think.
Yeah. So we're preparing real estate understanding and preparing for the next pandemic. I mean, hopefully our policies will be better, but I don't know. I mean, how do we stop?
But AI came up with the vaccine. I mean, when you think about vaccine, wow, it was meant. I mean, that was absolutely. It was incredible how in a year, all the pharmaceutical companies got into bed together. They went, right, we gotta jump on this. And the speed and work that went in, and we could not have got away with this if even 3 years earlier. There's no way that vaccine would have been brought to market in a year. Impossible. But actually, and this is what frustrates me about climate change and that now is because that is as big an issue as what COVID is. It's a slower burning cancer. It's not a sudden heart attack like we have with COVID. It's a slower burning cancer, but we're not taking it seriously. And if we wanted to, we could get things done rapidly. And a lot of what I'm doing now, I had some big meetings again yesterday, and this group of companies I'm putting together, where we're all singing from the same hymn sheet, is literally working out how do we get in there, and how do we make dumb buildings smart and save you money, not cost you money. And
Yeah.
I'm coming along herding sheep at the moment, trying to get everybody on the same. But I have got the insurance sector now on board. I've got the insurance sector saying, look, if all this technology can go into a building, then we completely de-risk the building. So we can cut insurance costs by 20%. So if we can keep on this momentum of energy savings, insurance cost savings, asset prices increasing, etc. What we're trying to do here, and I'll tell you what, it's killing me. I mean, I'm trying to get this whole coalition of people where we put in the smarts, and you save money, and your asset goes up in value, and it doesn't cost, because we've got to change the narrative around. I think this is where we differentiate between grade A, grade B, grade C. And I think we can start talking to the grade Cs and say, look, you do this, boom, you're getting up there with the A boys quickly.
Yeah, no, we're working on that here in the council in the U.S. too, around that whole concept and trying to put together a coalition of insurance companies and researchers with the universities, and how can we build this out in a smart way to kind of save, and it's all through technology. Technology is going to save, from an insurance cost and all those other great things. But yeah, no, we're working on that here too. It's kind of an interesting,
wonderful,
fun little thing in 2025. But Christine McHughes, she's been on that too. She's just, it's one of the things. But from sustainability, from insurance cost savings, from energy reduction, all these different things, PropTech can really save the planet. Because we use, from the built environment, use so much energy, right? And with data centers, more and more data centers getting built, we're consuming even more energy. We kind of have to figure out how the technology can kind of, help the real estate operators operate better.
And great to see Brookfield now again, them jumping aboard on nuclear as well. And I think this is where finally we'll start accelerating our push. I mean, the US alone has got so much nuclear waste that it's got enough nuclear waste to run on these new nuclear power stations to last the next 125 years or something, just in the waste it already has. So it's incredible. The US is in an amazing position to really sort of take its nuclear waste, and with the sort of terraform stuff that Bill Gates will be working on, really transform how the US goes to zero, fossil fuel emissions by moving into smaller nuclear solutions.
Yeah, and it's so funny. When I was in Sweden, they were totally like, you can't go nuclear. Nuclear is bad. And there's this one guy, and I'm just kind of laughing. I go, dude, everybody thinks nuclear is green now. I mean, like, nobody thinks nuclear is bad. So I don't know
don't get me wrong, it's still bad, but we're going to have to use energy anyway. I mean, as I try to get through to humans, we're the only ones who are the issue. I don't see horses or donkeys or cows needing electricity. Just us.
Just us. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're not as tough as cows are, for sure. Yeah, no. we're a little thin-skinned. All right, awesome. Okay, so any other okay, so next week is Christmas Eve. We're not having a show. So y'all spend time with your families.
All right. Perfect.
Have a happy, Merry Christmas to y'all. It's going to be really good. And then the week after that is New Year's Eve. I probably will have one just so we can have a party. But, Christmas is Christmas. So be with your families. It'll be fun.
All right.
All right. So last parting thoughts. Go ahead, Deanie. Parting thoughts.
Well, I have to agree with Paul. We got to get serious about all this climate and controlling energy. It's just hard. In the US, it's hard for us to take it serious. When I was in Europe with ULI and saw all the sustainability they were doing over there this past summer, we're way behind. Well, eventually we'll catch up, but it's going to take a while.
It will, for sure. And Paul?
I mean, it was John Kerry who said to me that, here we are, the home of Elon Musk and Tesla, and yet we have 4% of people in America using EVs. I think if you look graphically at where America is right now on its emissions, it's right up there. I mean, Canada's worse, Saudi Arabia worse again, but America's really sort of way off. kilter. And I think it's going to take a cultural change for people to realize, actually, hang on, the rest of the world is going here. And I don't know how long those two egos, Trump and Musk, will be in the same room without falling out, but I hope they can stay in the same room long enough, because I do see Musk realizing from his travels around the world that actually we do have to change, and he obviously wants to push Tesla very hard. So I think this is an area where I think a lot will happen I think 2025 will be interesting. We have globally, we are all sitting here shitting ourselves about what's going to happen in 10th of January onwards, praying that there's some common sense around there. But I mean, I have to say that cabinet is a little scary. But look, good luck to you all. But we do hope common sense prevails, and I hope he sees sense and actually leads on this, because it'll be great for America to start being first, or start putting this really first, and making it an industry that it can then export, rather than having to do it after everybody else. So let's hope for the best, okay? But let's make 2025 a year where we just change things, okay? Let's just make it happen.
I feel
We've
you
talked
there.
enough in 2024, okay? Enough procrastination. Let's go make it happen, okay?
I feel you. Yes, for sure. Well, thanks, guys, for coming on the show.
All right.
Been great.
Happy holidays.
Great to see you
So
again.
long. Bye.
Bye now.
See you. Bye. All right, that has been the Commercial Real Estate Morning News Show. Thanks for Paul Sheedy and Deanie Taylor for being on my show and talking about all things AI and healthcare and climate and all those great things. This is a weekly news show of the U.S. PropTech Council. If you're interested in joining the PropTech Council, feel free to go to proptechcouncil.com. I'm Amy Polito. I'm the chair, and the PropTech Council is, as always, we have to say thank you to our sponsors. Lerner and Associates, they are a mergers and acquisition consultant for the PropTech industry. Ben Lerner is a good friend of the council, and we're so happy that he is our sponsor. All of y'all have a happy Merry Christmas and a happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, whatever it is you celebrate. I hope you have that and spend a great time with your family. Next week, we will not have a show. And then I will have our New Year's Eve show in the morning, talking about with some really good friends, and we're going to talk about the 2025 and what we're looking forward to in the coming new year. So y'all have a blessed one, and I hope you have a fabulous time with your families. Have a good one. We'll see you.